Gamers, how's it going? So today we're gonna talk about Branded. This deck is still insane, and I haven't played it in a while. I started playing it again these past two streams, kind of getting back in touch with it. There's so much complexity when it comes to Branded. So this deck profile is not at all for people that are already super experienced with the deck. More so for people like me that used to play it back when it was extremely brain dead easy, and kind of like are still interested, maybe kept the cards and stuff like that, and kind of wanted to revisit it. I think it's still a top 10 deck in the game. On my tier list, I put it as the 6th best deck, right under Yubel. I really do think this deck is still amazing. Now we have the option of Light and Darkness Dragon, which has basically been my game plan with this deck, to set this up going first on the basic setup. I really like it. I don't think it's like the best thing ever, but it is 3 Omni Negates for a deck that historically never really set up Omni Negates like that. Like, you could do it, there was ways to do it, but it wasn't really something that you commonly did with Branded. So I'm definitely excited to showcase the deck with this new inclusion. Do I think it's the most optimal end board you can do for Branded? Not necessarily, but honestly, there's just so many ways to play Branded. I really can't think of like a optimal solved way to play Branded in Master Duel. There's just so many good ways to go about it. This deck is so good. There's so many different ratios that you can do that are good as well. Like, for example, a lot of people are going to cringe at me running 1 Quem. A lot of people are going to cringe at me not running 3 Cartesia. A lot of people are going to cringe at me running 3 Super Poly for some reason. Like, there's a lot of ways to build Branded. It really is a deck that invites conversation, which I like about it. I like how open-ended it is. This video is definitely not going to be all-inclusive. If you want an all-inclusive video, there is that one like 20-hour Branded guide. I don't remember what it's called, but like, just look up 20-hour Branded guide if you want like truly all-inclusive, endless Branded video to watch. But otherwise, this video is going to be more focused on people like me that are revisiting the deck, and it's just like there's just a lot to unpack with Branded when you get back into it. The playstyle has changed a lot over time, and a lot of new options have shown up for the deck, for example, Albion, now the Light and Darkness Dragon. Honestly, I thought it was daunting. It took me a while to like get used to this deck again. It's pretty complex. There's just so many lines. So with that being said, let's get into it. We're going to probably look at some replays or do some solo mode combos, stuff like that, just to get you reaccustomed to all these wonderful cards. I suppose the first thing I could do here is just show you the very basic line for Light and Darkness Dragonlord. It's very, very easy to set up consistently within the deck, so might want to show you that first. Yeah, let's do that. All right, so let's see here. We have in hand the Serenir, the Thrust, the Branded Opening. We're going to start off with Branded Opening, discarding Serenir, which is pretty broken here. We go for Astellar, trigger the Serenir in the grave. Serenir can send a branded card to the graveyard, so we're going to be sending a card here. We're sending the Branded Retribution for later. Then Astellar is just going to grab Branded Fusion. We can go for Branded Fusion, send the Albaz as well as the Lublion to make Albion. Albion is going to then banish the Astellar and the Albaz here. So banish Astellar. Oh no, actually banish Serenir because it's in the grave. My bad. Banish the Serenir. We make Lubellion, and then Lubellion we go into Mirror Jade. We got to leave the Albion on the field because we have to tribute it to summon the Bestial Lubellion, set up the Lost, and then Albion is going to set up Banishment. This is how we get our Light and Darkness Dragon. Light and Darkness Dragon takes a level 8 Light and a level 8 Dark Dragon. So basically you have this one on the field, and with Banishment you bring back the Albion to make it. So here we go. I shotgun Max C here. This is just to test for a called by. Since they don't call by my Max C, I feel comfortable going for Banishment, and we're just going to set up our big old 3 Omni Negates. And here's another cool thing, right? We have Super Poly here. Even if they called by my Max C, after we get our Light and Darkness Dragon, our Branded Lost triggers. And here's what you got to keep in mind, okay? Light and Darkness Dragon, it is a mandatory Omni Negate, which means it will negate your own effects, but it does not negate spells and traps that are already face up on the field. So it will not negate the Branded Lost. You get to search and Mercourier. So that means that basically if they deal with all of Light and Darkness Dragon, then you're able to use Mercourier and the Mirror Jade. But until then, you can't really use these two unless you chain them after you're using the negate of your Light and Darkness Dragon, because this is just a once per chain effect. With that being said, however, because monster effects can't be used to respond to Super Poly, here I could at any moment go for Super Poly, discard Mercourier, and obviously my Light and Darkness Dragon will not be able to negate it. So this is like an insane setup. It's as basic as it gets for the deck, really. But if you just wanted quickly the Dragonlord combo to just summon Lad in Branded, this is all you basically need. But we're going to check out some more stuff here. We're going to talk a bit more about Branded. This one is actually pretty cool. So this is me playing into Branded, and Branded basically does a good job of outing my Dragonlord board. And then I actually do a really nice comeback. So I felt like this was a really good one. So we go Quem here, send the Albion, which becomes Albaz in the grave. Then we can special the Cartesia. Albion can send to the grave a Branded Retribution. Then I'm going to activate my Cartesia effect, and we can fusion into a Grand Guignol. So we already sent the Branded Retribution to the grave. We shuffle back the Albion. We go for Grand Guignol, send the Serenir. Serenir effect is going to trigger. We can send Branded Fusion to the grave. Then we could go for Retribution effect, add back the Branded Fusion. At this point, you know, it's basically, you know what it is. We go Branded Fusion, send Albaz and Lubellion. It's the same idea. It's just a different path to get to basically the same board with basically the same hand too when you look at it. Then we go for Albion, banish the Albaz as well as the Serenir like earlier. Go for a Lubellion and we discard our Super Poly. Make ourselves a nice big old Mirror Jade. Then we tribute over our Albion with the Lube Lion. And Lube Lion is going to trigger. We're going to set up our Branded Lost. Set up Super Poly, literally the exact same setup as last time, except with a different path using Grand Guignol, right? So add back the Cartesia, pass turn, and we go for Max C. They don't have the called by. I go for Branded Banishment, bring back the Albion. I'm playing against a 60 pile here, so it's either Tearlament or Branded, right? I already kind of had that idea in mind. So with these two, we go into a Light and Darkness Dragon, and I want to give my opponent props here. You'll see they have a really interesting way to deal with my board. Anyway, we get our Branded Lost Search, get to grab a Mercurier from the deck in case they deal with this. They go for Gold Sarcophagus, and obviously this is a mandatory once per chain effect, right? So when they activate Gold Sarcophagus, we have to, this will always chain to every effect. So because of that, it uses up my negate, but then they go for Book of Eclipse, which is insane here. This is such a good play because basically I won't get to lose attack since my monster will be flipped face down. So not only do they deal with my entire board with the Book of Eclipse, but they also don't get their Gold Sarcophagus negated because for this negate to resolve, it needs to lose 1,000 attack and defense. So yeah, that's pretty crazy. So anyway, this all resolves. They get to flip all our cards face down. So now we're left with basically Super Poly. Even our Mercurier can't activate anymore because we don't have a face-up fusion monster that uses Albaz's material. So they get to banish Tragedy, grab their Aliber. And this was scary, man. I thought I was going to lose this. They go for a Thrust. Oh my goodness. They grab evenly, banish my whole field. I keep the Super Poly as some kind of protection. They go for Aliber, activate Branded Fusion, make an Albion the Sanctifier because that's the play into Max C. My opponent played that super well. Super well, but and I had to think really hard to get through this. I'm gonna normal Aliber here to get the Branded in red because Branded Fusion is in the grave. I'm gonna go Branded in red. They're gonna chain their Albion. At least, you know, we deal with the Albion early, so I don't have to worry about getting Albaz later in my turn. That was the main reason, really. I wanted them to use this early so I don't get hit by Albaz later. They do get the Quem effect to send their Branded Retribution here and grab back their Branded Fusion, but that's fine. You know, we're gonna make it work. We are going to make it work. Here we go for Fusion deployment, reveal Mirror Jade, summon the Fallen of Albaz, discard the Mercurier, and I just go into a Albion. So at this point, we can go for Albion effect, banish the Albaz and the Mercurier, make a Lube Lion, and then we go for Lube Lion effect, discarding the Cartesia, trigger the banish effect of Mercurier so I can add a monster that mentions Fallen of Albaz from my deck to my hand. And they also get to trigger their Golden Sword Soul here, summoning out the Cartesia from the hand. I grab the Albion, the Shrouded Dragon here, and then we shuffle back these two to make a Mirror Jade. So yeah, this is kind of scary, but I do have Super Poly, so we're going for Super Poly here to deal with the Cartesia so that they can't get into further plays, you know? At that point, we get the Albion effect in the grave, send Branded Retribution. Then I'm going to go for Mirror Jade, send the Albion to the grave to banish the Sanctifier. We go for Branded Retribution to grab back the Branded Fusion from our graveyard. Activate Branded Fusion, send 2 to the grave, make a Rimbrum. And here I was just trying to like fill up the board to make sure I can like close out the game, you know, just get as much damage so that I can go for lethal. But yeah, just a really interesting duel in general, I think, you know, like, I don't know, maybe I'm gassing myself up. I just think I did pretty good in that replay, honestly. So like now what I'm going to do, I'm taking you to solo mode. I want to show you, because I feel like a lot of people, when they try to get back into Branded, a lot of the options Branded runs now are just things you're just not as used to anymore. So I feel like this is probably going to be a good, like a decent hand to show some stuff. Like, for example, I want to show you Astellar in the deck, which is that White Forest card. So, for example, here I could grab like Serenir by discarding the Lube Lion. Then we could go like Branded Opening, you know, and I'm just going to show you like Serenir's application in the deck. Then I'll also show you the Branded High Spirit, because that's another card I often see people, including myself. I was even confused about the card, but it's really, really good. So here, let's just go for the Astellar line. So we're going to summon the Aliber. So here we go. Astellar is going to search Branded Fusion. Serenir can dump like a Retribution here, I guess. I am running 2 Retribution in the deck, so we'll get to set this one and use it for like its actual purpose. So yeah, Astellar, add to the hand a copy of Branded Fusion. So what you can do with Astellar is you can actually send it off Branded Fusion and then get it back later. I'm going to show you that. I guess we didn't even need to send Retribution because we're going to discard it in this combo, but it's whatever. So here we would make an Albion using the Albaz as well as the Astellar in the deck. And this stuff is pretty interesting, right? So you can go for Albion here. I'm going to show you why Astellar is actually good. So you go Albion. Albion is going to fusion a Lublion using the Serenir in the grave or the Astellar on the field. Here we're just going to use the Serenir in the grave and the Albaz in the grave. Make a Lublion. And this is where it's pretty cool. You get to go Lublion. If you have a Speller Trap to discard, in this case it would be like Retribution, then basically you get to fusion into Mirror Jade using the Albaz as well as the Lublion. You do want to keep Albion on the field for your Lublion in the grave. But you know, you get your Mirror Jade here, and then because you discarded a Speller Trap for the effect of Lubellion, you get to trigger a Astellar in the grave and summon it, which is really, really good. This is like pretty insane actually. So you get the Astellar here. Now, why is this good? Well, there's a couple reasons. So for starters here, we wouldn't always have Regained in hand, right? But let's say you could tribute the Albion here, summon your Bestial Lubellion. And then if you wanted to, you could go Bestial Lubellion, set up the Lost, and you could use this to send the Lost. Now, honestly, personally, I would probably prefer keeping the Lost and just discarding the Regained in this scenario. Or you could even arguably, since we set up 2 Branded Retribution, you could lose even less here in this particular scenario. You could get even more out of just doing this, adding back the Branded Fusion just to discard it off of Astellar, right? So it would depend on what you have, but it does add some cool consistency because Astellar can discard a card and then summon either a Cartesia or a Quem, depending on what you want, which is really, really good. It's not as good when you don't run Synchros in the deck, you know, but to be fair, if we're doing this after Branded Fusion, you can't even Synchro anyway. So me personally, I would probably just go for a Cartesia here, just to be able to set up the Grand Guignol, right? So then you can use Cartesia, make a Grand Guignol using the Astellar as well as the Cartesia. You get a Grand Guignol. Obviously, we already have Serenir in the grave and all that, so we don't get as much off of it, but we do get to trigger our Branded Lost early, get to grab our Mercurier early, you know, so there is value to doing this. So we're going to grab our Mercurier here, you know, and then the Grand Guignol can send like Albion to the grave, I guess, since we already sent stuff. Or if you want, you could send like a Bestial card because obviously we have opening right now, Regained right now, so we could definitely just summon it on opponent's turn if we wanted to. At that point, it really is up to you. Also, if you had like good targets that you can send to the grave, like, you know, if you can get like an Albaz in the grave, like let's say you used Quem or something, you could just send a Rimbrum to be able to summon Albaz on opponent's turn with the Rimbrum. So like there's a lot of different options you would get here. I probably am just sending like the Albion here, and you know what we can do, can go Albion, send to the grave, like a card that we can add back to hand. For example, High Spirits will add itself to the hand in end phase here, so that could be a decent one. Or you know, you could also send the Brightest Blazing Branded King to add it to hand in end phase as well. This is a good one, so it really would be up to you at that point. I'm probably going to send this one. It's just like, because we're not going to be sending it in end phase, so we might as well just add it on the end phase to the hand from the grave. Then you could go like Branded Regain and you just have it for later. And I would probably just pass on this, go to end phase. End phase Albion would trigger. We'd get to set. We also would trigger this, add it back to hand, you know. So, you know, there's a lot of different things you can do using the Astellar. Do I think it's a must run? Not necessarily, but it does help push your ceiling a little bit. So here, basically, we would set the Branded Banishment just so we can get our Light and Darkness Dragon on opponent's turn. And we also get to add back Cartesia. So, like, the amount of advantage we generated here is pretty crazy. Obviously, the board has some bodies that aren't doing anything yet. But, you know, at this point, we could easily go, like, Branded Banishment, grab this. If they went Ghost Spell, we'd have a negate in hand for it, but if they went Called By, we couldn't really do anything about it. So it is what it is. Special summon the Light and Darkness Dragon using your Albion and your Bestial Lubellion, and there you go. Probably want to put the Light and Darkness Dragon in defense position. That's just a misplay on my part, to be completely honest, because it banishes. Here we had the Regain in hand, so we will get to shuffle back and draw. I mean, honestly, I'd probably just shuffle back the Albion here, and then we also get a Search with Loss. We already have Mercurier, but might as well. So yeah, I mean, this is all like pretty solid stuff, right? From deck to hand here, I guess you could add like the battle phase negate, you know, better than nothing, I guess. And there we go. That's just how much advantage we generated with the combo there. Pretty crazy. That's all with Astellar pretty much. Well, not all with Astellar, but I mean like that's what Astellar can add to your deck, you know, in certain scenarios. So Astellar is actually pretty good. I learned about this very recently when I was looking at Kinohara's list when I made my last showcase, and honestly I'm pretty impressed with it. All right, so here we are. This hand is going to be a really good showcase for it. So Branded in High Spirits. This card is a bit daunting when you read it because it does a lot of things. But it's not really like super straightforward how it works. So generally speaking, Branded in High Spirits, you'll want to activate when you have like a dragon in hand. Sometimes you'll also activate it when you have a spellcaster in hand. And basically, here's what it does. If you reveal a dragon with your Branded in High Spirits, you're going to be sending usually an Albion to the grave, and Albion is then obviously an end phase, going to be able to set a branded spell or trap. Otherwise, if you reveal a spellcaster, you're going to be sending Grand Guignol, and this one has the effect that if a monster is special summoned by your opponent, you can banish this card from grave, special summon a Dogmatica from your deck, or a Despia from your extra deck, which is pretty good. You can like summon Quem from your deck with it, basically. But that's not really the point. The card you send to the grave is not necessarily as important as what this can search for you. So you discard the card you reveal. So in this case, for example, we have Fallen of Albaz. I would probably just reveal Fallen of Albaz, discard it. Then I can search a Fallen of Albaz from my deck or a card that mentions it. And the thing is, you have a lot of good cards that mention Fallen of Albaz in your deck. So the main use for it is really as a way to get to Branded Fusion. This isn't always the use for it, but oftentimes you're using Branded in High Spirit. Let's say we reveal Fallen of Albaz, then we send to the grave, you know, our Albion, and then we have the option of discarding that Albaz, and that'll allow us to search like a Springen's Kit. Here, that's pretty good. Kit can special summon itself if we have Albaz in the grave, and Kit can search Branded Fusion. If we already had a way to get to Branded Fusion, then you'd often search a Cartesia. This card can also special summon itself while you have Fallen of Albaz in the grave, and then you can use it to fusion or potentially dodge an Imperm with its quick effect fusion. So, you know, there's a lot of different options. Sometimes you won't need either of these, and then you might get like a Battle Phase negate or an Albion or a Tri-Brigade Mercourier, but the most straightforward path I can tell you is that oftentimes you'll be searching a kit just so that you're able to get to your Branded Fusion. So with this hand in particular, I would definitely go Fusion Deployment first, just to get a Cartesia on the field. Cartesia can just be a way to dodge Imperm on Kit, for example. Then we can go and activate Kit, special summon it, since we have Fallen of Albaz in the grave. So activate Kit, you know, and then we can like pretend, let's just pretend that my opponent activated Imperm here on my Kit to stop me. Then I can go Cartesia, and we can use Cartesia and Kit to make basically a Grand Guignol. So we will make a Grand Guignol using these two. And that way we get to dodge, right? Now, obviously, I could have used my Astellar, but you don't want to do that because the way Kit works, it'll search Branded Fusion and then shuffle a card from your hand into the deck. And you'd probably much rather keep the Ash than the Astellar here. So you shuffle those two, you get the Grand Guignol effect. You can send to the grave either an Albion or a Serenir. They basically do the same job. I'm probably sending a Serenir in this case. Get Serenir effect and send to the grave a Branded Retribution for later. Then I'm going to go ahead and activate Branded Fusion. We would make, you know, a Albion. And there you go. From there, you basically get into your full plays, right? So you go Albion, send the Bestial Lubellion, send the Albaz, and you get the full setup from here. I don't know if I need to show you the full setup again. I feel like you probably get the idea by now, but let's just do it anyway, right? Let's just go for it. We will have to discard a card here, which I guess does kind of suck. Going to use Albaz in the grave here, and we can use either the Serenir or the Kit or even this Albion because we're going to get this one in the grave later. But yeah, it doesn't matter very much. We're going to use the Kit in this case, I guess. And summon the Lubellion. Then we get to go for Lubellion effect. We're gonna have to discard our Ash at this point. Unfortunate. And then we can make our Mirror Jade, shuffling back that Lubellion and the Albaz that's in the banish pile. So there you go. Now we have Mirror Jade on the field, and we get, you know, all our basic setup here. We can special summon out the Lubellion using the Albion here. Get your Branded Lost or your Regained if you want, but I like Lost. I like Lost a lot. It's really good, especially since they can't respond to like effects of fusion monsters when they're summoned. That's like really strong. At this point, you know, if you wanted to, you could just use Branded Retribution early to grab back your Branded Fusion. Personally, I like keeping Retribution in the grave and just kind of like just in case that they have like some kind of graveyard pressure later that I can like respond to with the branded retribution, because I would feel pretty silly if I went for this like shotgun right now and then I get like crowed on my branded fusion or something. So I prefer usually just holding on to this effect for later, but that's really going to be up to you. Either way, at this point you would just go end phase. You get, you know, your Albion effect in the grave. You can set up your banishment to be able to make your lad on opponent's turn, or you could set something else if you wanted to as well. You don't have to do this. And then we also get to add back Cartesia. And that's about it. That's about the gist of it. For I hope this helped a little bit for the Brendan in High Spirits, because like this card can be a bit daunting. I don't know if I even did a great job of like making it more simple. Whether you send Albion to the grave with it, or whether you send the Grand Guignol, you know, if you reveal a spellcaster or a dragon, either way, you're still going to be able to discard it and search kit. So don't worry about it too much. You know, whatever you reveal with your Branded in High Spirits, it's always going to be able to get you to a card that can search Branded Fusion or a Cartesia, depending on what you need. So I think that's about it really for the solo mode stuff. I just wanted to help people that, you know, are coming back to the deck and wanted some tips on some different tech options, as well as just showing you how to set it up. I guess to end it in true fashion, we can just do this one last time, bro. Just summon the Light and Darkness Dragon, you know, get our nice Omni Negate on the field here. And yeah, that's about it. That's about the gist of it. We're going to go do a card by card now, you know, and I'll also explain the choices that I made and the cards that I left out. There's some cards that I just didn't want to craft. So yeah, let's go do that. All right. So here's a list. I think this deck is good. I got to Master 3 with it. I'm very confident that I could get to Master 1 with it, but I kind of want to try out maybe Dino. We'll see. I haven't played Dinos in a while on the channel for a deck profile. So if I could get Master 1 with a Dino deck, I'd feel pretty happy about it. So that's why I didn't keep running with Branded, but I did do quite good with it. It is really, really solid once you start, you know, getting your bearings and getting used to the deck again. Before we even get into the card by card, I just want to mention some cards I left out. So like, for example, Alba Abyss is a really good card. If you have it, this can basically, you know, you can like set Albaz and then fusion away all dragon monsters on the field without having to use a fusion spell. You just contact fuse all of it away. So this could be pretty good in the grind game against Tenpai, or if you make it to turn 3 against Tenpai, it can definitely be very solid. If I had this, I would run it, but because I don't, I decided to run a Super Poly package. Another one is Titaniclad. Titaniclad is quite good because during the end phase, if this card is in the grave because it was sent there this turn, you can add to your hand or special summon one Dogmatica monster or one Fallen of Albaz from your deck. So summoning Albaz, obviously in end phase, can be quite good just to fusion away some of your opponent's stuff. So if I had Titaniclad and Alba Lenitus, I would remove Super Poly. I'd run more Book of Eclipse, and I'd replace the Super Poly targets. Well, I'd keep Dragostapelia. I'd replace the Super Poly targets with Titaniclad and Alba Lenitus. So just want to mention that, you know, if you have those, you might want to run those over the Super Poly stuff. Then there's also, this is a big one actually, Gold Sark. Gold Sark, this card is so good in Branded. This is just a one card starter. Basically, this is a Branded fusion because you go Gold Sark, banish the Despian Tragedy from your deck. Tragedy can then search your Alibur, and Alibur can then search your Branded fusion. So if I had 2 copies of Gold Sark, I would absolutely run it. I'd probably run like 1 less copy of Branded in High Spirits and just 1 copy of Retribution to run the 2 Gold Sark. Unfortunately, I don't have it, and like I said, I didn't want to spend any UR dust. I already had so many of the Branded cards, and it's already, as you can see, insanely expensive. So I opted not to run it and, you know, to just use what I have. And honestly, I'm still happy with the build. I still think it's quite good. Some ratios might look weird. Honestly, I don't have like a fucking like branded degree on these ratios. Like, why am I running 2 branded retribution? Well, it's because I kind of like it. I kind of like that I can send one, and then sometimes I can set one and use the actual negate effect of it. You know, it can negate Kaimen, which is pretty nice. So that's why I run a second one, you know. Why are you just running 2 Fallen of Albaz? Shouldn't you run 3? Well, you know, I opted to only run 2 because I'm not running the Alba Lenitus and all that stuff, and I'm running the Super Poly. So I figured, you know, I might as well just run 2 either way. You can shuffle them back with your Lubellion, so it's not the end of the world. It might come up, but it doesn't come up all the time. I can see the argument for running 3. I can't pretend that I'm like some all-knowing being that has the most perfect branded list of all time. You know, I can see the argument for running 3 Albaz. Why are you only running 1 Quem? Why are you running 2 Kit? You could run just 1 Kit. Well, I like having a path to branded fusion, you know, and Quem is great, but I don't know. I'm not running the synchro stuff, so I'm not sure if I want to run run it at multiples, even though it is an amazing card that can definitely be a good starter for you if you have access to, like, let's say you're Branded in high spirits, for example. Look, there's a lot of different ways to build Branded, especially when it comes to a 60 pile like this. So the ratios are going to be up to you in a lot of ways. I actually don't believe that this deck is solved. Like, when I see a bunch of different Branded players in my chat that are way more experienced than me with the deck, they'll all disagree on a bunch of different ratios. It's clear to me that there's actually a lot of freedom for expression and deck building, like where you can kind of build it your own way in a lot of ways, which I do like about this deck. With that being said, I think that's enough yapping about that. We're now going to go into the card by card. So we have 1 copy of Tragedy, 3 Maxi, of course, 1 copy of Astellar, 3 Ash Blossom, 1 Keeper of Dragon Magic. This is just like a third Alibur to me. Basically, it searches Branded Fusion. 2 copies of Fallen of Albaz, 2 copies of Alibur, the Mercurier, 2 copies of Kit, 1 copy of Golden Sword Soul. This card is actually really good. I didn't even show the Golden Sword Soul in this video. Damn. This card, basically, it can summon Cartesia from your hand or grave if a monster is banished. So oftentimes that comes up. And also it's a battle phase negate, which is not terrible to have, honestly, especially with Tenpai running around. It has come up for me. It's actually not bad at all to have access to an attack negate that also then generates more advantage with, like, being able to summon Cartesia or Quem. So I do quite like the Golden Sword Soul. Don't sleep on it. I'm running 1 Fulos because I have 1 copy. I kind of see it as like an extra copy of Max C since I'm running a 60 pile. Makes it a bit higher odds that I will draw a Max C. If I had more copies of Fua, I might run more, but I'm not sure. 1 copy of Magnamut, 1 Serenir, and 1 Druisworm. These are just the best Bestials. The absolute best one is Serenir, but Magnamut can get to Serenir or potentially to, like, Lubellion if you use Magnamut on opponent's turn. We have the Druisworm here. Druisworm doesn't come up that often for me. I don't really like this card that much. It's all right. I think it's just all right. It's a good card, but I'm not running Chaos Angel. I don't love it. I think it's fine. 3 copies of Albion. I think everyone should run 3 Albion. A lot of people were arguing with me about this when I was, like, playing the deck on stream. This one I just don't get why you wouldn't. It's such a good card to draw in hand. You get to send any branded spellside trap to the grave, and you get a draw. It's like, it's Upstart Goblin on crack. It's just insane. You get a draw from it, and you get a dump. Like, what the hell? Foolish Burial and Upstart at rare? Sign me up. I think it's a great card. Also, it's treated as Albaz in the grave, which is also a really good, like, function for the card, because sometimes you'll use it as fusion material, or just by having it in the grave, you get to special out your Cartesia or your Quem. Not your Quem, I mean your Kit. So yeah, I love Albion. I think this card is awesome. Obviously, a lot of getting Branded Fusion these days is just getting your Retribution in the grave, and then also finding a way to get Serenir in the grave, usually with your Grand Guignol, just to be able to send Branded Fusion, and then going Retribution, add Branded Fusion, which all works under Droll, by the way, so that's also a really good thing. You could run Droll in this deck if you wanted to. You can play under your own Droll quite well a lot of the time. Next up, we have 2 copies of Bestial Lubellion. I was running 3 of this at first. I bumped it down to 2. I'm kind of mixed on it. I kind of like 3 as well. I'm not sure about this one. This one's debatable. 1 copy of Foolish Burial. Foolish Burial is Branded Fusion, because you can go Foolish Burial, send Despian Tragedy, Tragedy, search Alibur, Alibur, search Branded Fusion. But if you don't need to do that, then you can also use it to send a Serenir, to send, like, a Retribution, or you can use it to send an Albion. And, you know, so it's a multifaceted card in this deck. We have That Grass Looks Greener. This is just, honestly, it's not even that crazy in this deck. This deck is just so good at 60. There's no reason not to run that grass. And a lot of the time, people will just scoop if you go grass. Like, obviously, you can get great advantage from all your graveyard effects with Grass Looks Greener, or just the amount of, like, fusion materials and like, you just get so much value in end phase off of That Grass Looks Greener when it goes through. But oftentimes it's also just a really good, like, ash bait, and then you can do other shit. So it's not like the best card ever, to be honest. It's just good for this deck in particular. I mean, Fusion Deployment can summon either Albaz or Cartesia, which are both super valuable to get on the field. Oftentimes, you'll go, like, Fusion Deployment to summon Cartesia. Cartesia then, as I showed earlier, kind of protects you from, like, Imperm, so that's really, really good. We have Triple Tactics Talent. This is just a good search target off of Thrust when going second. Branded in white. It's just a good fusion spell that you have access to, you know, sometimes. Just a regular, like, polymerization is all you need, really. Branded Fusion, obviously. 3 Triple Tactics Thrust. Going second, this can search Branded Fusion, you know, if you need it. Triple Talents if you need it. Branded in white if you need it, you know. It's just a really multifaceted card. And another thing, going first, I'm almost always setting the fusion duplication. One thing that's really cool is if they Ash branded fusion and you have thrust, you can just set duplication. Then duplication can just basically banish your branded fusion on opponent's turn, and you can go full branded combo on opponent's turn, and they cannot Ash fusion duplication target branded fusion. Even though this card becomes branded fusion, it cannot be ashed. So this is a really cool play around Ash Blossom for the deck. It's happened multiple times for me. It's come up a ton. So I definitely recommend running 3 thrust and the duplication if you have the thrust at least. Branded Lost obviously is just great. Branded Regained, I almost want to remove this because I like literally never go get it. I feel like I could remove this and run a 3rd Lubellion and I'd probably be more happy. Like, this is so win more for me. I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to do it right now. I don't really like Regained is good when you're established, but like there's almost never a time where I would rather search Regained than Branded Lost. This card is so insane. Just the fact that it basically makes it so your opponents can't respond to your fusion summons is just crazy. It's actually so broken. 3 copies of Super Poly. I already explained this. 1 copy of Book of Eclipse. I would run more Book of Eclipse if I was running less Super Poly. This card is super good. It's just a multifaceted card. Board breaker. It's a good interruption. You know, like when you get your first turn setup, you can set this and use it as an extra form of interruption. It's just a great card. Also, you can fusion away your monsters even if they're face down. So it hurts our own deck a lot less, and it would hurt a lot of different like decks such as like Synchro decks or Link decks. You know, it's actually really good in fusion decks. You don't really care that your monsters are face down. 2 called by, 1 cross out. That's another reason I'm running the Fuelos, but honestly, I'm not even running Imperm, so maybe cross out is not even worth it, but you know, I'll keep it around. I've been able to use it from time to time and negate a max C. I don't hate it. 2 branded opening. This is just branded fusion again. Branded High Spirits. Basically, if you have a monster in hand that you can reveal with Branded High Spirits, this is another copy of Branded Fusion. It's also just, you know, we talked already about the applicability of this card. Branded in red is a good way to make the Guardian Chimera on opponent's turn. Get a couple draws and a nice pop, or a couple pops and a nice draw. Branded Banishment is your way to make your Light and Darkness Dragon. We have this, which is just negate everything your opponent controls. It's imperm the whole field for some reason. You know, sometimes I will set this with my thrust if I don't need to set my fusion duplication, and it's pretty insane. 2 copies of Branded Retribution, already talked about that. We have Mud Dragon and Garura for Super Poly, Draco Stapelia, 2 copies of Albion, 2 copies of Mirror Jade, 1 copy of Lubellion, 1 Grand Guignol, 1 Rimbrum. Albion, this is your main play into Max C. Oftentimes you'll just go Albion, pass, and then like you can summon Albaz on opponent's turn, fuse away their stuff, and you know, get into some type of plays using that. So it's quite good. Next up, we have Chaos Star Source Dragon. This card is kind of like a budget Guardian Chimera. It can like pop 2 cards basically because you'll use a light and a dark dragon to make it. So it's like another option that you can summon in scenarios where you could summon Light and Darkness Dragonlord. You might actually make Chaos Star Source just to remove some cards from the field. It's pretty good. You already know about Chimera. You already know about Light and Darkness Dragon. And Verte. It's a must run in my opinion. Verte is pretty nice. You know, like Verte is another example here where like if they let's say they negate your Aliber, which was your path to Branded Fusion, then you can actually go Verte to send the Branded Fusion to the grave and use Thrust to set this. So you'll like pass on Mirror Jade and you'll have the Fusion Duplication set, and then you can just go like Fusion Duplication and do a whole Branded Fusion line on opponent's turn while also having Mirror Jade on the field from your Verte. So just the fact that Verte can get Branded Fusion in the grave is actually quite good. So yeah, that's gonna do it. I did a lot of yapping in that card by card portion of the video. Sorry about that. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope it was helpful for people that want to get back into Branded. I can't cover everything with this deck. First of all, I'm not the best Branded player ever. This is a very complicated deck, so I more so wanted to cater this video to people like me that want to get some success with it, but that don't want to watch a 20-hour guide on becoming like a Branded hermit. But if you do want to watch that, go check it out. I mean, hey, I hear it's pretty good. That's it for me. See ya.